Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. The first thing I remember is the sound of the ice machine outside room 224. It was 1:14 a.m. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not in that hallway. Not in that hotel. Not on that floor. But I stood barefoot on the patterned carpet, heart in my throat, listening. I hadn't meant to listen. I had come to drop off a hoodie she forgot in the car. That's it. Just a simple gesture. Her favorite one, the soft gray one she always stole from my closet. She said she'd be at the hotel bar with her coworkers for one last drink before the conference ended. Said I didn't need to come back. Said I looked tired. But something didn't sit right. So I came back anyway. And there I was, in a freezing hallway, gripping a stupid folded hoodie like it meant something, while her voice leaked through the door behind me. Not slurred. Not playful. Focused. Sharp. Cruel. He has no idea. He's like a dog that thinks it's people. I pat his head and he thinks we're equals. They all laughed. Multiple voices. Someone choked on a drink. Then she kept going. Seriously, the way he looks at me sometimes? Like I'm this gift that landed in his life. It's almost sad. If he knew the things I say behind his back. Someone asked if I'd ever find out. God, no. He's too slow for that. He still thinks I cry during yoga. It's wine, Chad. I drink wine and scream into the towels. That's my self-care. My vision tunneled. I pressed my back to the wall. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to bang on the door. I wanted to scream. But instead, I stood there like furniture. I'll leave eventually, she said. I just need him to think it was his idea. And then, silence. Except for the mechanical hum of the ice machine. And the distant sound of my heart finally breaking. I didn't move for maybe 10 minutes. Just stood there, back against the wall, frozen in place like I was trying to sink into the plaster. My bare feet had gone cold. The carpet might as well have been ice. Everything about that hallway felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. Only it wasn't a dream. It was real. Her voice echoing in my head wasn't imagined. She'd said those things. About me. With a smile. With pride. She meant them. Eventually, the door opened. I heard the click of heels on the hallway floor before I even saw her. She laughed at something one of them said. The guy, Chad, put his hand on her lower back. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. In fact, she leaned into it. Like they'd done it 100 times before. And then she looked down the hall, right at me. She froze. For a moment, her entire face changed. The smile disappeared. Her lips parted slightly, and I could see her thinking 100 thoughts in a single second. Her brain was calculating. Had I heard it? How long had I been there? What should she say first? But I beat her to it. I held up the hoodie. Just held it there, silent, like an idiot delivering a package. She blinked, then walked toward me like nothing happened. Took it from my hands and said, "Oh my God. Thank you. You're such a lifesaver." I stared at her. She kissed my cheek like a politician. Light. Meaningless. Her perfume hit me again, too strong this time. Too sweet. It made me nauseous. Then she said, "Babe, you look like you saw a ghost. Are you okay?" I didn't answer. Chad walked past us. No eye contact. Just silence and cologne. She turned back to me, waiting for me to say something. Anything. I wanted to ask 100 questions. I wanted to scream, "Why am I the joke in your life? Why do you smile when you hurt me? Why do you stay if you don't even like me anymore?" But instead, I just said, "I'll be in the car." She texted me 2 minutes later. "Are you mad at me or something?" No punctuation where it mattered. No guilt. No explanation. Just confusion. That was the part that shattered me the most. She didn't even realize what she had done. Or worse, she knew and didn't think it mattered. The next morning, she acted normal. Made coffee. Scrolled her phone. Told me she loved the way the hotel sheets smelled. She asked me if I wanted to stop by that farmer's market on the way home. The one with the organic strawberries, she said, reminded her of her childhood. I told her I had a headache. That I needed some space. She said, "Okay, just let me know if you're going to be all weird about something." Weird. That was the word she used. And later that night, when she fell asleep beside me in our bed, wearing the hoodie I'd brought her, hugging it like it meant something, I laid there staring at the ceiling, thinking one thing over and over. She's not scared of losing me, because she doesn't think she can. But she was wrong, because I was already halfway gone. The thing about betrayal, real betrayal, is that it doesn't always explode. Sometimes it unfolds slowly, like fog creeping through your life, blurring the edges of everything you thought was solid. And the worst part? The one who betrays you keeps acting like nothing happened. They keep smiling. Keep texting you heart emojis. Keep asking if you want anything from the store like they didn't just drag your soul through a paper shredder. That's exactly what she did. 2 days after the hotel, she came home from brunch with the girls and handed me a blueberry scone like she hadn't spent the night before, laughing about how replaceable I was. She kissed the top of my head and said, "You've been so quiet lately. Are you still mad I didn't tell you about Chad being there?" Chad. Like it was just about him. Like I didn't hear every word she said about me with her own voice. She wasn't even trying to deny it. Just playing dumb. Shrinking it all down to a misunderstanding. And what did I do? I nodded. Said I wasn't feeling well. I played along, like a coward. Like the wallpaper she said I was. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't see, was that I had already started documenting everything. Every message. Every login. Every charge on our shared card. I wasn't looking for evidence of cheating anymore. I had already accepted that part. No, now I was watching her carefully. The way you study a spider in your room before deciding whether to kill it or just leave the house entirely. And I was leaning toward leaving. Not just the house. The whole life. You see, I realized something at 2:47 a.m. that Monday morning, lying awake next to her as she softly snored, still smelling like whatever overpriced mimosa bar she'd spent half the afternoon in. I realized that confronting her would do nothing. She'd deny, cry, turn it around, blame me for listening, blame me for not being man enough to handle the truth. She'd twist it, and I'd fold, like I always do. But if I left quietly, if I vanished from her story like a ghost, took my name, my kindness, my loyalty, and let her explain to her friends why her clueless husband disappeared without a word, that would break her more than screaming ever could. And so I started planning. I backed up all my files, transferred money slowly, in small amounts, to an old checking account I hadn't touched since college. I told her I might need to visit my brother in Minnesota. He doesn't even live there anymore. I said I might take some mental health time off work. She said that was fine, as long as it didn't interfere with our trip to Napa next month. I told her it wouldn't, but I knew I'd be long gone by then. And every time she touched my arm, called me babe, or posted some stupid filtered photo of us with the caption, "My rock to hearts," I stared into her eyes and smiled back. Because the truth was no longer just mine to carry. It was going to be her ghost. And soon, she'd feel what it was like to be invisible. The first thing I packed was my grandfather's pocket knife. Not because I planned to use it. God, no. But because it reminded me of who I used to be before her. Before all this. Before I became a man who flinched when his phone buzzed. A man who second-guessed himself before speaking. A man who measured his worth in crumbs of affection tossed like scraps on a cold kitchen counter. I didn't want to be that man anymore. So I started with the drawer. Not the obvious one. Not the one she'd notice if it looked lighter. The one in the hallway console. The drawer she never touched, where I kept old receipts, expired coupons, and all the things that didn't matter. I tucked the knife into a zippered pouch. Added my birth certificate. My social security card. A backup debit card she didn't know I still had. Then I closed the drawer gently, like I hadn't just reclaimed something sacred. I didn't plan to leave tomorrow. Or the day after. That's not how you disappear. Not when your name is on every lease, every bill, every shared calendar reminder. You have to do it in pieces. Quietly. Like pulling bricks from a wall one at a time, until there's nothing left to hold the roof up. She noticed none of it. In fact, that week, she was more affectionate than usual. I think she could feel something shifting, like animals do before an earthquake. She'd touch my arm when she walked past. Call me handsome for the first time in, I don't even know how long. She even posted an old photo of us from a camping trip 3 years ago with the caption, "Love of my life. Grateful every day." I almost laughed when I saw it. She hadn't even smiled in that photo. She was swatting at mosquitoes and yelling at me for forgetting the bug spray. But her followers didn't know that. To them, we were perfect. And maybe that was the part that hurt the most. That no one would ever believe me. If I told them she was cruel, they'd look at her Instagram and call me bitter. If I said she belittled me behind closed doors, they'd show me her wedding vows, still framed in our hallway. If I told them she said I was pathetic, they'd shake their heads and say, "No, not Tessa. She adores you." So I stopped trying to be understood. I just started preparing. I pulled my name off our streaming subscriptions. Slowly redirected mail. I even created a new email, just initials, no trace. Every night while she scrolled on her phone, planning our Napa trip, laughing at TikToks, and tagging me in them like we were still goals, I sat beside her and quietly deleted myself from our life. I studied her, really studied her. The way she talked about others. The way she pretended to love people she secretly despised. The way she never apologized unless there was something in it for her. And I realized something I hadn't let myself admit until then. She never loved me. Not really. She loved how I made her feel about herself. Loved being admired. Worshipped. Loved being the center of someone else's orbit. I wasn't a husband. I was a mirror. A reflection she could smile into when the lighting was right. And when it wasn't, she turned away, found another mirror. That night, as she fell asleep with her back to me, breathing slow and steady like nothing in the world could touch her, I whispered something into the dark that she didn't hear. But she would feel it soon enough. Enjoy the version of me you built, while it still exists. It was supposed to be just another quiet evening. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch with her laptop, glass of red wine in one hand, the other lazily scrolling through some Pinterest board about dining room aesthetics. The irony was unbearable. She hadn't cooked an actual meal in 3 weeks, but she was collecting images of dinner tables like we were some kind of storybook couple who hosted Sunday roasts for grateful friends. I was in the kitchen pretending to clean the sink. Really, I was just stalling. I'd already packed another small box that afternoon, some old books I donated that were actually going to the storage unit I'd rented under a fake name. I was getting closer. The outline of my escape was almost complete. And then, she left her phone on the counter. Face up. Open. Unlocked. She never did that. She always carried it like it was an extension of her body, like one of those paranoid people who think someone might read their thoughts if they leave their phone unattended. But this time, whether from wine or confidence, she'd forgotten. And something inside me, I don't know if it was impulse, or maybe just survival, told me to look. I didn't snoop. I didn't dig through messages. I didn't have to, because the notification was already there. Big and bold. An Instagram DM preview. The sender's name wasn't Chad. It wasn't anyone I knew. It said, "You were right. He's still clueless. Dinner Thursday?" She hadn't seen it. Her phone buzzed again. Same guy. Also, that thing you said last time about him during yoga. I can't stop thinking about it faced with tears of joy. I tapped the message without thinking. I wasn't even afraid anymore. What was fear to a man already cut open from the inside? The thread unspooled fast. I scrolled just enough to know this wasn't new. This wasn't some accidental flirtation. She'd been talking to him for months. Jokes, confessions, screenshots of my texts, voice notes where she mocked how I said, "I miss you" in the mornings. She was feeding him pieces of me like scraps to a dog. And what shattered me wasn't the cheating. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the tone, the ease, the way she turned my loyalty into a party trick. Like I was some long-running sitcom character they both quoted ironically. I put the phone down quietly, back in the exact spot, still unlocked, still buzzing occasionally, like it wasn't a live grenade sitting between 2 slices of sourdough. I went upstairs, slowly, careful not to make a sound. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor for so long that my eyes stopped blinking. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, empty, like something had been scooped out of me that would never grow back. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't been ready to admit before. I wasn't just leaving her. I was leaving the version of myself that tolerated her. I wasn't going to be the man who understood, who forgave, who buried his rage under metaphors and long walks and podcasts about emotional maturity. I'd given her every version of myself, and she wore each one like a costume she got bored of halfway through the show. But now I was done performing. For the first time in months, I woke up before her. Not out of anxiety. Not because I couldn't sleep. I'd slept better that night than I had in weeks. There was a strange calm in me now, the kind you only feel after you've already made the hardest decision of your life. The kind of quiet that settles in after the storm has ruined everything, and all that's left is dust. I didn't stare at her while she slept. I didn't ache for her anymore. I just watched the early morning light crawl across the ceiling and listened to the silence between us grow heavier by the second. When she finally stirred, she didn't roll toward me like she used to. She picked up her phone before even saying good morning, checked her notifications, replied to something with a soft smirk, then got up to shower like it was any other day. But something changed that morning. She looked at me a little longer when I didn't follow her into the kitchen. She asked me if I wanted coffee, and I said I was fine. No explanation. Just I'm fine. Her head tilted slightly, eyes scanning me for something. Anything to read. I didn't give her a single clue. And that scared her. You see, she was used to me chasing the tension, to me apologizing first, filling the silence, offering peace when she'd already burned the bridge. But this time, I gave her nothing. Not coldness, not warmth, just stillness. She asked if I wanted to go to that little movie night her friend Danielle was planning for Saturday. I said, maybe. Not sure. Not let me check. Just a maybe. She tried to play it cool, but I could see it in her face. Something had shifted. She was losing control. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. The area code was local. It simply read, "Hey, are you okay? I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but I think you deserve to know some things. Can we talk?" My hands went ice cold. I responded with one word. Who? The answer came fast. You don't know me, but I know Tessa. We used to work together. I think you saw my messages on her phone the other night. I'm not who she told you I am. It was him. The man from the messages. The laughing partner in crime. The one who called me clueless while texting my wife late at night, like I was some background character in his rom-com. But now he wanted to talk? I didn't reply. I couldn't. My mind was racing. What did he mean? I'm not who she told you I am. Why now? What changed? I didn't tell her about the message. I didn't react when she asked if I was stressed about work. I just smiled and said, not really. That night, she tried harder. She brought home Thai food, the kind we used to eat in our first apartment when we didn't have a dining table, and sat cross-legged on the floor. She made a joke about how I used to beg for extra spring rolls. I laughed politely. She leaned in to kiss me, and I let her. But the truth was, I felt nothing. No anger. No passion. No heartbreak. Just detachment. She could feel it. I could tell. She kept looking at me like I was fading in front of her. Like I was a memory dissolving while she was still holding on to the edges. It terrified her. And that's when I realized she wasn't scared of losing me because she loved me. She was scared of losing the version of me that worshipped her. The man who built his identity around making her happy. The man who let himself be diminished in exchange for crumbs of affection. Without him, she didn't know who she was anymore. And the cruelest part? I wasn't going to take anything when I left. Not revenge. Not the house. Not the story. Just myself. The one thing she never truly saw as valuable until he was gone. I waited 3 days before I responded. Not because I didn't want answers. I did. Desperately. But I knew better than to walk blindly into the fire. When someone on the outside suddenly wants to talk, someone who was complicit in your humiliation, you don't just hand them your trust. Especially not when you've been dismantling your life piece by piece in total silence. But something about that message wouldn't let go of me. I'm not who she told you I am. The words echoed louder each time I replayed them. I kept wondering, was he trying to confess? Apologize? Clear his conscience before ghosting? Or was this something else entirely? Was he about to drop a truth I hadn't even begun to consider? I finally agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. Midday. Public. I picked the corner table facing the entrance so he'd never be behind me. I didn't know what to expect. I'd imagined a dozen versions of him. Arrogant, smug, indifferent. But when he walked in, he didn't look like the villain I'd cast in my mind. He looked nervous. Tired. Not at all like the smooth-talking guy from the DMs who laughed at my expense while sipping drinks with my wife. His name was Eli. Not Chad. Not Mark. Eli. He sat down across from me and immediately said, "You don't owe me anything, and I don't expect forgiveness. But you deserve to hear the truth. All of it." I didn't speak. Just stared. He took a deep breath. "I didn't know you were real at first," he said. "She told me you were separated. That you were living in the same house for financial reasons. She said you were emotionally abusive. Controlling. She painted you as this cold, manipulative guy who made her feel small. Said she stayed with you because she was scared of starting over." That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true. It wasn't. But because it was such a clever lie. Not the cartoon villain kind. The believable kind. The kind people tell when they need to justify doing something ugly. Something selfish. "She never showed me pictures of you," he continued. "Never used your name. Said it was too painful. But the way she talked about you, it made me feel like I was helping her. Like I was giving her something she needed. Something she wasn't allowed to have at home." I let out a quiet, Bitter laugh. So you felt like the hero. He didn't argue, just nodded, slowly, until I saw your texts pop up. Real texts. Thoughtful ones. I asked her once why you were sending her poems. She said you were love-bombing her to manipulate her guilt. Said you always did that. That part. That was like a knife between the ribs. The poems weren't random. They were from the notebook I kept from our dating days. She used to beg me to read them to her. She cried once when I read her one on her birthday. I thought it was something sacred between us, a language only we shared. But apparently, it was just more ammunition for her campaign of lies. She told me you cheated on her first, he added, almost reluctantly. That's why she justified everything. She said you broke her long before she broke you. I clenched my jaw. It was a ridiculous lie, but a smart one. It erased her guilt in one swing. It made her the survivor. And I finally understood, this wasn't just about infidelity. She needed to destroy the version of me that had value. To make me worthless. To make me easier to betray. I didn't say much after that. I thanked him, if you can believe it. Not because he deserved it, but because in some twisted way, he gave me the final puzzle piece. The last bit of truth I needed to finally step away without regret. And as I stood to leave, he looked up at me and said, I didn't fall in love with her. I fell in love with the version of her who was escaping you. And now I'm not sure she was ever real either. I left without another word. That night, I came home and looked around the house with new eyes. Every framed picture, every shared toothbrush, every memory we were supposed to treasure, it all felt like props on a dead stage. She asked if I wanted to watch something before bed. Said she felt a little off, lately, like maybe we were drifting. I told her no. I said I had work to do in the garage. She didn't follow me. She never followed me when I said that. Because the garage wasn't part of her world. It wasn't aesthetic. It wasn't Instagrammable. It was just my space. So I went there and opened the drawer with the final envelope inside. Cash. Passport. The key to the apartment I'd already rented in a city she'd never think to look. 3 more days. And then I'd be gone. I left on a Sunday morning. Not because it meant anything, but because the world moves slower on Sundays. Less traffic. Fewer eyes. The kind of quiet you need when you're slipping away from the life you used to think was yours. I didn't leave a note. Didn't pack loud. I moved like a shadow through the house, careful not to disturb a single object. Every step felt like peeling away the final layer of someone else's dream. The one where I stayed. The one where I begged. The one where I kept trying to fix what she had already buried. She was still asleep when I walked out the door. The sun hadn't even risen yet. But the air felt different. Lighter. It wasn't just that I was leaving her. It was that, for the first time in years, I was walking toward myself. I didn't cry in the car. I thought I might. Thought maybe I'd break down once I hit the highway. Or hear some old song on the radio that reminded me of a time when we were still real. But there were no tears. Just silence. Just breath. Just peace. The apartment was small, older, and smelled faintly of dust and forgotten spices. But it was mine. Every box I unpacked felt like reclaiming an inch of my own existence. No decorative pillows with hashtags on them. No pastel mugs for Instagram. Just space. Blank, uncurated, and honest. I started reading again. Cooking for one. I bought a used guitar at a pawn shop and taught myself 3 songs badly, and didn't care. I even reached out to my brother in Minneapolis. Turns out he hadn't moved to Oregon like I told Tessa. We laughed about it over the phone. He said I sounded different. I told him I felt different. I didn't check her social media. I didn't answer her texts when they finally came, 3 days after I left. The first one was short. Are you okay? Then another. Where are you? Then, you're scaring me. I almost replied to that one. Almost. But I didn't. Because I wasn't trying to scare her. I wasn't trying to hurt her. That was the mistake she made. Thinking love was something you could break and walk away from unscathed. Thinking cruelty would just evaporate with a laugh and a kiss on the cheek. I didn't need her to hurt. I just needed her to know she lost something she thought she owned. Months passed. And one afternoon, I sat on a park bench near the water, sun on my face, a book in my lap, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I caught myself smiling for no reason. Not because someone wanted me to. Not because I was performing for approval. Just because I was free. That was the moment I knew. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't come with applause. It's quiet. It sneaks up on you when you're not trying to prove anything anymore. When you've let go of the weight that wasn't yours to carry. I wasn't the man she left behind. I was the man she never really saw. And now, finally, I could see myself.